you have to look at your business from the outside in. Otherwise, you're talking to yourself. So if you look at it from your customer's point of view, how does your marketing look? Do they understand the offers? Do they understand what you're trying to say? It's going to make your marketing efforts a lot stronger.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
You've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. You're with DamenJackson.com, and you're the founder and the current president. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Awesome.
Since
Can you give
1998.
since 98? Wow.
98,
That's a good run.
Yes.
That's a really good
24
run.
years so far. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Can you tell the audience just where you're from and a little bit about yourself?
I'm originally from Iowa. I went to Iowa State University, and but since 1996, I've been a Chicagoan, and now running the company in Chicago, and just living the dream, man. In terms of the entrepreneurial dream.
Right. So Chicago, St. Louis, not that much different weather-wise. You having a beautiful day today outside?
It was a little chillier, but it was a nice day. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy for spring to be here. This winter was it was a milder winter for us, but there was some pretty bad days in there. Now, the name of your company is Damen Jackson, and you're a branding company?
We are.
And
That's correct.
And you gave me a pretty funny story about how you guys came up with the name Damen Jackson. Can you tell us about what that story is?
Sure.
And just share that with the audience for me?
Yeah, about 8 years into the business, my partner and I decided we were going to part ways amicably. He wanted to keep our original name, which was Spark, and I had to rename the company. And it's actually really a big challenge to name a creative group. So what we did was we ended up doing 3 rounds of brainstorming sessions, and then finally landing on Damen Jackson. Damen Avenue was our first office. Jackson Boulevard was the current office at the time. So we merged the two together, not really realizing that Damen and Jackson was an intersection in Chicago that was the home of Malcolm X College. So we had 2 or 3 clients showing up at Damen and Jackson saying, "Hey, where are you guys?" And we said, "Well, we're about a mile east of where you are right now. So just get back in the cab."
So you named it basically on the 2 different streets and didn't realize there was actually a cross street for that. But
didn't even cross our minds. A bunch of Chicagoans working with me, and not one of us brought that up as an issue.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've had a paper written and we've read it like 30 or 40 times, and it goes out to production and there's some like really obvious typo in the header, really, really big.
Yeah, usually the headline, right?
Yeah, like how did nobody catch that? Like we looked at this so many times. So that is a funny story. Can you tell us a little bit about what Damen Jackson does, like specifically on the branding? Like, do you have some kind of specific process that you follow, that you go through, and then what kind of clients you would work with?
That's a great question, Ken. What we realized probably about 3 years ago was that traditional branding methodologies were effective, but they weren't in keeping with our current customer base. So branding programs were 1.5 to 2 years in the making. At the time, it would take a long time. And the audience was getting younger and more collaborative. And what we realized was we can't keep doing this the way we're doing it anymore, because we're not winning projects. So we retooled our branding process. We named it Step Zero. And Step Zero is what to do when you don't know what to do. You go back to Step Zero before you start executing tactical changes. And what we did with the Step Zero methodology was we made it more collaborative with the customer. The clients are actually in the room with us doing the work. Whereas before they would hand us whatever information they had and what they knew about their business. You know, agency would go away, work for a few months, come back. Here's what your brand looks. Here's what your brand is. They'd say thank you very much. They wouldn't know what to do with it. And so, what we've done is they're in the room. We're collecting information, and then we do take it back and we work on it a bit. We bring it in and we get more collaborative feedback on the work as we go. It does make it faster, it does make it more collaborative. And the people who are in the room with us tend to believe in the work more when they're a part of the development of the work. So step 0 is our branding methodology. It helps us help our customers define themselves, differentiate themselves, and then create actions for moving forward. Because that's one of the big problems that was that we noticed in the market was we had several people we spoke with who said, well, I had a branding agency help me a few years ago, and then they handed me a book and I had no idea what to do with it. Right. There was no action coming out of the branding process. Great work, great thinking, great strategy, but no application. So if you don't have an action plan coming out of a program like that, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah. So in my mind, you get the branding book done, right? And I've got probably 20 or 30 of these books laying around throughout my lifetime. And what I use it for mostly is like a reference point. Well, one, I use it if I'm hiring a new web developer. I'm like, here's the book. So it's got all my color codes, all of those things, the language, the voice of our company, all of those kinds of things in them. But I think I've always used it as a reference point while we're creating marketing stuff for the company. Are you saying that it should be more than that?
Well, what we're trying to do is create the priorities coming out of that meeting, right? So the first thing you need to do is get your social media shored up, and here's the messaging that goes along with that. It's a little more actionable than previously. It sounds like you were doing it the right way. You keep it for reference, you hand it to your agencies, you say this is who we are and how we act. This is our voice, our personality. That's how you use a branding program. But a lot of the people we're working with, I should have said a little bit earlier, as part of what we did when we retooled our branding was we're trying to democratize it a little more to bring it down market to smaller to medium-sized businesses. So we can apply branding programs we've used for much larger companies with them and have them be successful doing it. So by them having more hands-on approach, it's less expensive. It's also faster, and then they can actually apply the work that we've helped them create more easily in the market.
Okay. And so you brought up social media, right? And that's a huge topic, and it's huge for businesses that there's a lot of people out there that still say, well, my customers aren't on social media. They're absolutely wrong. Just about everybody's on some kind of social media platform. Today, I would even call channels like Netflix and Hulu social media platforms, right? So when you're talking about marketing in the social media world, and it's changing really, really quickly, social media is something that you have to take into account. Now, I know that the biggest issue, I've talked to thousands of business owners about social media, right? Literally thousands. Right. And the number one issue is I don't know what to post, right? And then the second issue that I run into that is a bigger problem than not knowing what to post, because I can help them with that, is I can't get my name on all the different social platforms. How important is it to be consistent with that twitter.com/your name, LinkedIn/your name, Facebook/your name? How important is that? Or is it more important to make sure that it's all linked from your main website to the right places? Obviously to the right places, but is that branding carrying all the way through all those different social channels at the URL level really important or not?
I don't think it's as important as it might have been a few years ago, because now it's like the algorithms are stronger between the organizations, the media companies. And so it's, as long as you've got a consistency from one platform to the next, so that the consumers or your customers are not confused when they're seeing you on Facebook versus on Twitter, it's not quite as important what the URL looks like as that they know that it's you. So in fact, I don't think anyone's going to go in and actually type Type in
And I'll
anything.
raise my
Oh,
hand
those
here
are
because I'm
different.
guilty, because I do that. I'm an old school nerd though, so
Okay,
I'm
but
always
but it
diagnosing
is.
the URLs, but
There you
that's
go. But
probably just a
you
bad
know,
habit of mine.
if you're making the links properly and they're able to do it seamlessly, the fundamentals aren't that critical on that aspect. The fundamentals
Right.
of the branding are the messaging, the image, the communication factor, the basis for your. But if we go back to your topic about, you know, clients who don't feel it's important to be on social media, um, it's it's a bit naive to say that.
Yeah,
And
I think it's a nice excuse that I don't know. I don't want to take the time to
I
learn
don't
it,
understand it.
and I don't
Yes, I
want to
don't
pay the
understand
money
it.
to get it done for me. Which that price is dropping drastically fast, right? The price to have somebody decent post on your social media platforms, you know, that used to be a couple $1,000s a month for a daily post, and today it's, you know, you can get it depending on how frequently you want and how tailored the content you want for yourself. You can get a reasonable amount of posts for a pretty reasonable price today, right? You don't have to go
I
out and
completely
get
agree with that.
the $10,000. I mean, sometimes you're paying the high end, you'll get a better product, but not all the time in this game, right?
It's
Depending on
really
what
the
you're
name of the game
building.
is who's doing the work for you, who's helping you, right?
Yes.
I mean that's really the main thing. And if you have someone who's adept and clever and understands your brand and can put the right message out there for you, then that's money
Right.
well spent.
Absolutely.
And it is so cheap. It is so cheap compared to like back when you only had TV or radio ads to purchase. You know, okay, fine. I'm that old, yes, but
Absolutely.
it's when you look at it from someone who's been in this industry for 24 years, the price of promoting your business has gone down so dramatically.
Right. Competition's gone way up.
Competition's gone up, but it's
Right.
almost inexcusable to literally avoid being on the media platforms that you can be. And I would just avoid the word social altogether. Don't make it about social media. It's just media.
Right. The eyeballs are living there.
Yeah. YouTube is a media site. Hulu or you know, all these are media sites, and you can advertise or promote your business free or very inexpensively just by trying.
Absolutely. I find it a shame when you find the brick and mortar business owners that I know that have a lackluster social media where they're providing a service that people are coming to their business. Like, we'll just take a picture with 2 or 3 people a day and post it about their experience with your business. It is so easy, and that is absolutely free. And I know from experience, I swear by that method. It's better than paid ads, I think, in a local marketing. Taking pictures with your clients, doing what you do or the result, and posting on social media takes a couple of minutes a day. And if you don't want to do it, find a VA, send it out to them. They'll post it for you. Just take the pictures and send them to somebody to make the post.
Yes.
It is so important.
Yeah, and a testimonial, a thank you, that's an instant piece of content.
Yes, absolutely.
Post it.
Now, all of that being said, the URL used to be important. It's not as important now. You've got services like inlink.com and Linktree that can kind of give you a portal to all your different social media platforms. If you use websites like WordPress or Wix or My Ghost Site, they all have a social media little button at the bottom that you can just put it all in there. So you can link to all of them really easy. Now, I recommend regularly to the new startups when they start to go ahead and try to secure all their different social media profiles the best that they can. But I'm very telling them, if you're not going to be posting on them, make sure that those pages are turned off. How important is it to have consistent posting on your social media pages versus kind of, here and there whenever you get around to it?
Yeah, I'm with you. If you're not going to be active on a platform, don't post, because it looks worse to have your last post be a year and a half ago. You look like you're out of business.
I've had a lot of people ask that question to my clients, like, "Hey, you're not posting. Why are you out of business?"
Yeah, I mean, like, why aren't you posting? And
right,
you may be too busy to post. Then by all means, you have no excuse to not have somebody posting on your behalf, because if you're too busy to be posting, exactly, you should be making money, and they're not that expensive to work with. So
right.
there are a lot of little great local agencies, 2-3 people who, just love doing this type of work, and they'll do it for you. I promise.
Absolutely. Now, is there a rule of thumb for how often you should post? I mean, Gary Vee says 8 to 10 times a day. I tend to say, a small business should be posting 2 to 3 times a day. Is there a happy medium somewhere in between there? Or, well, I've told some companies at least twice a week.
Annoying.
What's that?
I said, I personally find Gary Vee a little annoying because maybe he's out there too much. But I do think, you need to be where the eyeballs are when the eyeballs are there. So
right.
if 2 to 3 times a day feels right to you, and it's not, overwhelming, you don't want to give up your day job to do your social media work, right?
Right.
Because you went into business to do, as in essence, a tradesperson expertise in some area that's probably not social media. So if you're going to be posting that frequently, you definitely want to have someone who creates a calendar for you and everything else. Because I think that's where people get really overwhelmed, is the content calendar idea, right? So
yep.
If you work with a group and they have the discipline of creating a calendar for you, then the frequency of posts, as long as you're consistent, the key to the game is consistency.
Right.
And it's not so much how many times, it's how many times is right for the audience that's looking at your site and your particular industry. I don't think we would post 3 times a day, even, to be honest, because I think it would just, I think we wouldn't have a shortage of content, but I do think it might get really redundant after a time.
Right. So for a branding company, if I was going to make a post for a branding company and I'm looking for entrepreneurs, I would look at like 4 and 5 a.m. and I'd look at, maybe 10 p.m. to 10 p.m. to midnight, when I think entrepreneurs are taking their time to relax. We do social media posts for a pizza company, right? Well, we put their coupons out at like 5:30, 6 p.m. That's when people are scrolling through their feed, like, oh, I found that coupon, right? And those kinds of posts cost no money, right? You just got to put them out there. You got to take and literally hit the post. So it's really important. It's really powerful for the folks that aren't using it. I recommend doing it. If you don't know how, Damen Jackson can help you put together some kind of package, at least give you a guideline, right?
Yeah, and we're actually hiring a firm to help us do our own social media work. So it's not because of the old cobblers, kids have no shoes situation, like we're slow on our own, and I'm like, we're not even taking our own advice here, right? So I want to make sure that we're doing it as well. So this year I've committed to making that happen, and with a lot more regularity.
Right, and you can hire firms to do it. Onlinejobs.ph is a phenomenal resource to get overseas talent, and they're really good. Upwork, Fiverr. There's no excuse not to do it today, other than if you don't believe in it, then you just don't believe in marketing and branding. And I'm sorry, there's not much I can help you with if you don't believe in those two things.
And there are a few companies out there that might be able to survive and thrive without it. But if you're ever going to get to the next level, you're going to have to suck it up and do some marketing at some point.
I'm 100% positive if Coca-Cola and Marlboro stopped all their marketing and branding efforts tomorrow, they'd be out of business in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, they can't keep going because the world changes as people stop doing things.
And on top of that, the world's going to change. You're going to slowly lose top of mind, and a competitor's going to take advantage of all these tools, right? So
exactly.
Is it hard? Yes, it's hard. Absolutely. Business is hard. But if you're not willing to compete with the guy next to you, then I don't know what you're doing in business, right? It's probably time to start thinking about being an employee for somewhere.
Exactly.
If that's your concern.
I know we're talking to some startups here, but we're talking to some entrepreneurs that have been in business for a while. You darn well better be ready to pivot and change direction every now and then, or else,
absolutely,
there is no such thing as business as usual. Because the
not
market
in 2022.
is too dynamic. No, I mean, the market is dynamic. We're playing globally, and no matter what business you're in a global market.
Absolutely,
it doesn't matter. Like we just said, even the social media companies that, you can outsource to, someone in Eastern Europe or India, and they could be doing your posts for you, and no one's ever going to know. But
Yeah, and
that's the kind of
knowing your
environment the
brand
market was.
first is important. Knowing your color schemes, knowing your company voice, all of those things you have to know. Once you know those, though, you can outsource this activity pretty reasonably,
Yes.
right?
Competent
and-
people can extend a brand very easily.
Yes. All right. So you've been running Damen Jackson now for a few years. You transitioned from one company, you had a separation and all that stuff, but you've been pretty much an entrepreneur since did you say 98?
98. That's correct.
98. But before that, you were an employee for somebody else. Can you tell the audience about, what you were doing prior to, being your own boss, and then what that transition was like for you?
Yeah. It's really kind of fun to look back and say, gosh, when I had a job for someone else, it was, I kind of always knew I'd be an entrepreneur ultimately, just because I never really enjoyed working for someone else. But when I did had a job, I was a graphic designer, and I went with a salesperson on a call, and we together won this very large piece of business. It's a piece of packaging, a packaging assignment. As we were boarding the plane on the way back from that town that we were visiting, I called my manager at the office and said, "Hey, we landed the business. It's so exciting. It's great." And she said, "Great, you do it." She couldn't care less that we won this huge piece of business. And I was just like, wow, like we should be celebrating this. We were so excited. And actually not too long from after that, the salesperson and I and one other designer walked away with that piece of business and started our own business. Because it was like, if they're not going to appreciate it, I know I will.
Right.
And I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. The boss, I didn't understand him. I understand him now a lot better than I did then in terms of owning a business. But he just wasn't a very pleasant person to work for, and he wasn't a very pleasant person for our clients to interact with. And I just thought, gosh, this is a relationship industry. It's really not that hard to treat people well and with respect. And so I thought, why not give it a shot? I mean, like I could probably do it better than he can. And so here we are. Never really looked back.
And I don't want to defend people too much. I know that I've had my downfalls in my career, and I've probably treated people badly out of frustration for owning a business is hard. Owning a business and dealing with extreme stress and dealing with what at the time to you feels like, belly button lint problems, right?
Exactly.
And you can kind of snip at people, and it's hard, and it takes a lot of time and energy to change it. Get used to, I've got all this stuff over here, but this is still a human being, and it's so important to do. And this particular company not only lost great employees, they lost great clients at the same time, right? So, and Gary Vee is a little annoying, I'll give you, but the fact that he's talking about business intelligence and emotional intelligence a lot, I think is a really big thing that we need to be talking about in business as a whole, because I've seen that business owner, I've been that business owner. It's not a good place to be, and it's not sustainable for long periods of time either way.
No,
right?
No, it's not. And you have to every now and then just step away and recompose yourself and come back into the room in a different mindset, because it's and particularly these days, you can't treat people poorly.
No, because they have lots of options, right? The world is highly employable now. They can walk out of your business and go. They can be Uber driving in 30 minutes, right? And they can have their income. So people's fear of not making their mortgage or making their house payment, that's not a fear like it was 20 years ago. So they have lots. Everybody's got a lot of options that they can just go. They can earn enough money to pay to survive, right? So that's that mindset is gone. Now, you were able to pull off what I think is a phenomenal transition from working for a company. Now you're working on your own, and you took a client that you closed working for the other company in that process. did you get permission to do that from your current employer, or
No,
was there?
no, I got sued.
There was a legal ramification. Okay.
Oh,
There we
yeah,
go.
we got sued.
All right. Sometimes you
got
got to break
sued. It was
contracts to move forward, right? And
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about Illinois is it's really a, at will kind of a place. So they don't really,
right,
non-competes don't really exist, or they're unenforceable here. So,
right.
so we brought along that client. Yeah, definitely got sued, got through that. Not a problem. I mean, actually, I shouldn't say it wasn't a problem.
And pause for a second. Neither one of
us
us are lawyers. We're not giving any legal advice.
Of course.
I've been in this boat a few times, and I mean, talk to your lawyer before you make decisions like this that can get you sued, because it can.
That's great advice.
Right? Like, even though the non-competes aren't enforceable, I'm in a very similar lawsuit right now. Not lawsuit yet. They're claiming they're going to file suit. Even though you're probably going to win the case, lawsuits are time consuming. They take your eye off the ball. They cost a ton of money to defend. So anytime you're thinking about going into a position that could happen, talk to your lawyer, make sure you understand what the potential ramifications are before you jump on what I'm going to call it. It's just a hot plate, and you're going to be on it for a while, right? But I think for me, the juice has always been worth the squeeze, right?
Yes.
On that case.
And I mean, like, I think your point was great. The distraction of that type of situation is immeasurable. Like taking your eye off the ball, getting rid of your focus. I mean, it was definitely a massive distraction for us.
Yeah, the money I can make back, but the distraction to my main business of, going to the courts, going to the depositions, doing all this stuff, it's just such a mental drain. Winning a lawsuit's like winning an earthquake. It's just bad. It doesn't matter. Nobody wins.
There's no real victory there, and especially in those types of cases where it's just
your lawyers
a little bit
win.
personal as opposed to the lawyers win.
The lawyers are the only ones that win that case. So fantastic. So you did the separation. You have a big client. You get sued. When the boss told you to do it yourself, did he literally mean do it yourself? Like the company doesn't want this business, or he says, okay, this is your problem now that you got this business?
I think it was just sort of an overwhelm, and just like, okay, well, it's on you. You're gonna manage it, and you're gonna take care of this client, because it's gonna be a huge beast, and I don't want to deal with it.
Okay.
And so we did.
Yeah, I think that when you're getting that kind of feedback from your management and it's something you want to work on, I think that's time to start thinking about the exit from that company, and that's a good move. And
I think that's true.
Quite a while ago. Is that old company still in existence?
Yes, they're still in existence.
They're still.
I haven't worked with them in quite some time, but they've of course changed over the course of 20 years as well. So
All right. So lowering the price for branding so that it's available to small and medium-sized businesses. Did you call it the step zero or the ground zero approach?
It's step zero.
Step zero approach. So stepping back, looking at the whole field. I like to call that, looking at the whole field and then make my decision on what plays we're going to do. I like all of those approaches. If somebody wanted and they're having trouble, would they call you if they're having trouble branding or marketing? Like, how would somebody know that, hey, Damen Jackson is a solution for my problem?
Well, first they have to recognize they have a problem and be able to articulate what that is, right? You're getting your sales are down, you have new competitors in the market that you're not really sure how to, maybe they're younger, maybe they're more nimble, maybe they're using social media like crazy and you don't know how to do it.
Right.
Or you've been faced with a transition, like you merged with another business, or you're considering a shift in what you do or how you do it. Those are all sort of great trigger opportunities for us to come in and help with one of the things, Ken, that's really important that we like to talk about when we talk about the notion of branding. This is not branding in the sense of this is your logo and your colors only, right?
Right.
Branding to us at Damen Jackson, we talk about it as the DNA of your business. It's your decision-making matrix. It's how you run your company. It's how your culture responds to things. It's how you interact as a team. That's all components of your branding. Besides just marketing and visual language, there's a lot to it. And it's something we try to work on with clients so that they know they can keep focus once they've got their brand put together. And that tends to help them kind of reinvigorate their companies.
Right.
We had an RV company at the beginning of the pandemic. They came to us and they were like, we have a new CEO. We have an old company. We had a really great reputation for a long time, but it's gone downhill. Quality control issues, reputation has gone downhill a bit. The new CEO came in. He said, when I look at this brand, when I look at the logo, I want to know what my brand stands for. And so they were going into this initiative where all their new products were going to be high quality. They were rethinking the entire organization, and they put the branding aspect in with all of that. And we helped them create a message that just differentiated them from all the other camping companies and got their internal team aligned on that quality message and moving the brand forward and not leaning on its heritage so heavily. So that was a fun project. But we called it a corporate transformation because that was what it was really about, was using the methodology of branding to help transform the business.
Right. Because if you're gonna change from a cost competitive product to a value competitive product, you had to change your entire culture. Right? Your manufacturing time is going to be increased. Your customer service time is going to be increased. Everything is going to take longer to get done, to get that higher quality. And that means sometimes swapping out employees or trying to figure out how to move them around to the right job for them, because the job that they were doing in manufacturing a cabinet before at high speed is way different than manufacturing a cabinet of the highest quality. Right?
Exactly. And they may not want to go along with the game, right? Oh, this place is changing, whatever. It's
right.
It's okay to let people go who aren't in line with where the vision of the company is going.
Yes, it is.
Sometimes it's hard, sad. And it is sad, but you can't be successful.
I've never found it easy.
You got the team drunk.
Yeah. I've never found letting somebody go is an easy thing. I almost wish they would do something drastic so that I'd be like, oh, you're fired, get out of here. But that never happens.
Slam the door on, right? Get out of here.
Yeah, but it is what it is. I hate letting people go, and changing culture. Sometimes you have to let some employees go, but you should try to get them on board first. I think, there's a huge transition going on right now in one of the largest companies on the planet. Facebook's changing their name to Meta, and Zuckerberg, in one of his interviews, he was asked, why did you do this so publicly first? And he said, well, the easiest way for me to get it through my entire company is to say it publicly in the news, and then they know I'm serious. If I just say it in like an internal meeting, they don't think that I'm serious, so they don't start making the change until I say it publicly. So, making sure that you're putting it out to the world and to your staff at the same time, I think is also really important. I'll probably never have a rebranding like that in my lifetime.
And a company that size, that's a whole weird other kind of problem. But I would never do that at a smaller business, because that's kind of a rude way of approaching communicating to your employees. I mean, like, oh, I saw it on the news last night. We're changing the name of the brand. Yeah.
I imagine they've been, I think he's probably been trying to change it internally for a decade when he bought Oculus.
Rolling their eyes at him, right? Like, oh, yeah, whatever.
Wonderful. Alrighty. So now you're running the company, you're 20 something years in, everything's running smooth. You've got a staff, you've got clients, all that fun stuff. No more that lawsuit's gone, and no more major issues in your life to run the business. You're just getting customers left and right. You can satisfy them all.
Oh yeah, we're just hammering it out. Like, did I mention you're constantly pivoting as a business owner, no matter how long you've been in business?
Absolutely.
So our shift that I mentioned with branding has brought us to a change in the market, but we have this legacy part of our business that's in packaging design, and packaging design is a particular expertise that not everyone can do. And we've done it since the very beginning of the company. So 24 years in that, and then branding a little bit different audience, different type of component, different companies. So we have to kind of figure out how we're going to address that moving forward. Like, do we split off Step Zero as its own branding agency? What's the strategy here? So I'm in the process of kind of figuring out what's next for our own business. But one of the things that you mentioned is, in 20 odd years, you really need to learn to trust the people that work for you and delegate a lot of that responsibility. And
Right.
I had to start doing that in order for us to begin even pivoting and changing our branding process. So I had to let some of the work that I was doing go to someone else so that I had some free space in my head to think about how we needed to change and address it, because I knew we needed to change, but I didn't have room to do it. And the only place to get the time and the room in my head to do that was to let something else go. And
Right.
so,
That's a hard one.
If there's a skill to learn, it's delegation as a business owner, and trust people that they want to help you do your job. They
Right.
want to help you succeed.
I think it's Reagan that says trust and verify, right? So find easy ways to verify what your employees are doing, right? Very simple.
Right.
Hey, at the end of the day, send me a 3-line email on where you're at with the projects that you're on. I tend to like Monday morning meetings, like, hey, what are we going to do this week? And then Friday wrap-up meetings are, for me, that's great. I really try that daily Scrum meeting stuff. It always goes sideways on me. Every time that I try that daily stand-up in the morning meeting, it always...
Well, how about you stay out of it and let the other people do it?
Well, then they stop doing it, generally, right? Or they don't, in my other field, it's wildly, we have these certifications that we have to go through for PCI and HIPAA and all that other stuff. So it can't be an informal process. It has to be a formal process that's documented, written down, who was attending, and all of those things. So those become challenges. And those kinds of audits are more like, are you doing the things that you say you're doing, right, on a lot of these things? So if I say I'm doing a daily meeting, then I have to have proof that I do the daily meeting. And
you have to keep minutes and that sort of thing. Be very formal about it.
Yeah. So, and I think that's why it goes sideways. That's why we do a Monday and a Friday wrap up as our formals. And then we have a whole, our life is informal meetings for the most part, right? So, I mean, that's really where I think most of the work gets done in the informal meeting, right? in reality, but
say yes.
The auditors would disagree with me. They would say if it doesn't happen in a formal meeting, it didn't happen at all.
It didn't happen at all, right?
So awesome. Ron, I've had a blast. If somebody wanted to work with you, how would they get in contact with you? And do you have any offers for the Clicks and Bricks audience?
Anyone who connects with us, you can go to our website, DamenJackson.com, hit the info or hit the coffee chat button, send in your information, and tell them you saw me on Ken's web podcast here, excuse me. And I'll give you a free half-hour consultation about your brand.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And we'll put the link down at the bottom too, so you can just click it. We put it up there. It's DamenJackson.com. Fantastic. You have anything you would like to leave the audience with before we go?
Just, always keep that customer in mind. We talked about this a little bit earlier, is that you have to look at your business from the outside in. Otherwise, you're talking to yourself. So if you look at it from your customer's point of view, how does your marketing look? Do they understand the offers? Do they understand what you're trying to say? It's going to make your marketing efforts a lot stronger.
Absolutely. In today's world, it's so important knowing who your customer is, because you can talk directly to them how they want to be talked to, right? And it's
exactly
really, really important. And what I find, especially in the small business owners, is that you do look at yourself a lot because you are doing something you love so much that you are potentially one of your
passion.
own clients, right? Hopefully.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the hope. God, I would hate if you're out there running a business and you hate it every single day. I beg you to please find something else to do, because you're that boss that is, frustrated and
Unbearable.
probably not dealing with people right. It's so sad to see people doing something that they don't want to do. I'd rather see them shut that business down and go off and figure
I
out what's going
couldn't
to
agree
make them
more.
happy with life. So
They'll be
awesome.
a lot more successful doing that. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ron, so much for your time today. I
Cool.
hope we get to talk again
Thanks,
soon.
Ken.
All right.
Appreciate it.
That's it for today's show, folks. If you'd like to join my text line community, the number is 314-370-2871. Send me any question about business or technology. I'll send you an absolutely free, unbiased answer, no charge at all. Get to work.